Hello everyone and welcome to another lockdown interview. Today I'm delighted to be joined by former pro and director of the Gino Bartali Youth Leadership School, Ran Margaliot. Ran Margaliot was notably the first Israeli pro to ride for the Danish team Saxobank in 2011 and 2012. Ran later was the founder and team manager of the Israeli continental team Cycling Academy team in 2015, which later turned pro continental and changed its name to Israel Cycling Academy. The team still exists today in the form of Israel's Startup Nation on the World Tour. Ran was also an instrumental part in the Big Start project, which successfully brought the Giro d'Italia to Israel in 2018, and his team became the first Israeli team to take part in the Giro d'Italia. So lots to discuss in a very interesting career in the world of cycling. So without further ado, here is the interview with Ran Margaliot. Good morning, Ran. How are you? And where are you right now?
Morning, mate. I'm well. I'm in Israel at the moment, near Tel Aviv.
How's the lockdown been affecting you in Israel?
I'm a little bit ashamed to say, but it's so far so good. It wasn't too bad here. We're sort of an island. We are a little bit isolated, surrounding by countries with whom we don't have really diplomatic relations. So the moment they closed, the airport, and we had something like 6 weeks of a full lockdown, which was a little bit frustrating, but business is almost as usual right now. So far, we don't have, can't really complain on how things have been, but it's concerning, but also time for a change, I think, for all of us.
So we'll get into that. You've been a pro yourself, but right now you're the director and founder of the Gino Bartali Leadership School, Youth Leadership School. Can you just explain a bit, like what kind of things? Is it a cycling focus school, or how does it work?
Yeah. So long story short, after about 15 years in which I was sort of obsessed about pro cycling, first as a rider myself, then as a team manager and involved in different initiatives, decided to shift the focus to youth development and youth education for sport. And this is what this program is all about. We've created a program that fulfills the legacy of Gino Bartali, the legendary champion who risked his life to save hundreds during World War II. And we decided that we will use, his figure to inspire the next generation. Bartali was a rare figure rare character in different ways. He was both obviously a legendary champion in times in which the world, suffered crisis, which is, as big as we are experiencing today between the world wars. He's the only cyclist to ever win a Grand Tour de France before and after World War II, which is a record by itself. But he also risked his life to save hundreds of people that he never met. He never told it about to anyone. So the most modest person you could ever think of. The complete extreme opposite from being a superstar champion who is always rewarded for everything he's doing. And because what's important for us is more than just promoting cycling, more than just instilling cycling skills in those kids that we are working with, we've decided we'll use Bartali as our role model. What we've done is we established a boarding school program in which we are offering kids from across the Israeli diversity, kids from different religions, different backgrounds, to come and be part of our selection process. We are scouting local talents who are coming from from diverse backgrounds. Then we selected a group of kids that eventually got selected into the program and started the first generation of the school. The first year of the school started this past September. We've had 7 kids from very different backgrounds, moving all together to the school. They live there 7 days a week. They train twice a day, morning and afternoon. They study there. They eat there. They do the laundry there. They sleep together. This is about how we are showcasing that cycling can be a platform to change society a little bit.
How is cycling gone in the last few years since you were pro in Israel?
I think it has definitely grown a lot, more than anything in the recognition. The Giro coming to Israel was definitely a game changer in the perception of the general public. but it's a process. We are an emerging country, emerging market in the form of cycling. In order to create a culture, you need years. And although we consider ourselves the startup nation, and this is also the official name of the Israeli World Tour team at the moment, not everything you can start up. Sometimes you need to think, how you start from the bottom. This is what we are focusing on really creating a culture, of youth who will later on grow to become, adults who cycle. There is definitely a big movement of amateur, elder cyclists. I would say the range of 30 to 60 years old. The men and women who cycle in the weekend here is definitely growing a lot. We have north of 1 million people riding every weekend as a hobby. But what we really want to see is the next generation. It's children and youth picking up the sport as their sport of choice. Practicing it, whether it's competitive cycling or cycling for life. This is what we're really passionate about.
Isn't one of the problems with Israel cyclists that you have to serve in the military for a good chunk of time? So that's the time when you're in the development age.
This is true. I mean, if your goal is to become a pro cyclist, although at this point of time you're probably more privileged than many other countries because you have such a structure with Israel Cycling Academy, Israel Startup Nation, professional cycling teams, you still have this obstacle of the mandatory service in the Israeli army, 3 years long. Most of the Israeli athletes, they get a better condition than, they're not combative in any way. They can train every day. They are more or less limited in the amount of time they are allowed to travel out of the country every year. And they have something like 90 days that they can travel to compete all over the world. But I'm pretty busy with thinking, and with our doing, how will the world look like in the era post-corona. I'm pretty convinced the entire global cycling calendar will change drastically. And I think that in many ways, these kind of emerging countries who are more adapted to think out of the box, to create creative solutions, to plan their season so the cyclists can train properly in places like, for instance, Israel, where you have good weather, and peak specifically for certain races. This, I think in the future, it will no longer be such a big obstacle. Serving in the Israeli army is obviously part of being an Israeli. This is mandatory for every Israeli citizen. If they want to later on race world championships with the national team, this is part of their requirements. Whether they like it or not, they have to do it. But as a growing country, I believe also probably the service in the army will also be softened in the years to come. The conditions there.
How did you get into cycling?
Yeah, so the famous story that I was a chubby boy and only wanted to lose weight. But really, I think it's like everything. It's a process, right? We are all this is what we are. We're cyclists. We are about the process. We're not only about the end result. It's not a basketball game. But yeah, I think cycling served for me much more than being just a sport as a kid. I think I wasn't a very popular kid. I didn't have many friends, and therefore in cycling I found a lot of fulfillment for other gaps, other needs that I have had. It helped me build my self-esteem. It helped me build stamina, to appreciate the satisfaction of an effort, of a long-lasting effort, and found my group of belonging. I think that was the most meaningful thing for a young boy who is sometimes feeling lonely, or unwanted, or doesn't like the way he or his surrounding look at him. To be able to reinvent yourself and to find a new group of people that becomes your friends because they share the same passion with you. This is great. That's how I got into sport.
So how did you get into racing? Was there much racing in Israel, or?
It was a process as well. So I started riding mountain bikes just around my house, and then I found that team in Tel Aviv, not so far from me. I used to go after school hours to. I traveled there by the bus, and they rode mainly on the road. So I started racing on the road. At 16 years old, by instant I won nationals. Really, I was just lucky. I was definitely not the strongest guy, but then I felt like like I achieved my life dream, winning nationals, junior, and feeling that you conquer the world, like a championship of the neighborhood. I felt a lot of satisfaction. Then a few years later, they broadcasted in Eurosport the Tour de France, and I was fascinated by watching Lance beating Ivan Basso, winning his 6th or 7th title. And I decided, for one reason or another, that I will be that guy. I will be the first Israeli who race the Tour de France. And long story short, 9 years later, I changed that. I chased that dream obsessively. I got to race with Saxo for a short period, only to find out that it's not only about the ambition or the luck you need to get through to be the Tour de France. You should also have some talent, which I obviously lacked. So that's how it evolved.
What was those 2 years like at Saxobank? Because there weren't, well, I can't recall any Israeli on the top level at that point.
I was sort of a pioneer. I think, there were others before raced in high levels. There was no one racing in the World Tour, but it was very stressful, I think, more than anything, mainly because of my own expectations. I mean, I definitely pushed myself harder. One of the greatest gifts that cycling gave me is the understanding of how to pursue a goal, right? We are all we are all about goals in cycling, and we are all in every single climb in the race. We are able to get the maximum out of ourselves, and push beyond our limits. But to be able to work for something like 9 or 10 years towards that certain goal, this is something that was definitely taught me a lot. I think that was my main advantage in comparison to the other kids in my age, who were definitely stronger, more talented, better cyclists than I was, just because I had that huge willpower. But when I eventually got there to Saxo, I wasn't able to cope with my own stress. For me, it was either I make it to the Tour de France or not. I had definitely have had the best conditions one could wish for. There was no better team, which more organized. There was no better mentor than Bjarne to develop young guys. I think he definitely wanted me to succeed, but I just couldn't handle the pressure. I wasn't able to understand that it will take me a lot of time to get to that level. I wanted everything very fast. It was very stressful, just by the fact that I have to achieve a lot, by the time I finish my Neo Pro contract, just to be renewed. And I think that was the main problem. It wasn't realistic. In the aftermath, I think that's probably who I was. That's what was meant to be. But I finished my short period in Saxo. I wasn't renewed with Bjarne, and I decided I didn't call it a quit by the time, but I decided I'll take a break. I wasn't willing to go back, to the continental ranks to work my way up again. I just didn't have it in me.
What kind of inspiration was Bjarne Riis to you working with him? Because we've had other people on who's kind of said how Bjarne kind of is a very, I don't know, caring, kind of uplifting manager.
Bjarne is a very special person. I didn't have a lot of time with him in terms of volume, but in terms of quality, I think he inspired me a lot. He is a man that his heart and mouth are in the same place, and the team lives the value that is set. The team is a team. It lives like a team. It dinners like a team. It races in the bunch like a team, and that was very special for me, because up until that moment in my career, I was never part of a team. I was always, I raced with teams, but they were never a team. It was an individual. Everyone took care for himself at one point. I didn't have anyone to rely on. I was always in the situation where I have to hide my weaknesses because I was afraid someone would stab me in the back. And that was the first moment I was part of a team. And that's, I think, that's something very special that Bjarne was able to create. Another thing that he was able to create is to create a reason, why for people to be part of a team, which is not only related to money. And this is very rare in this show business, because eventually, okay, we know most of the people, at least the big stars, they will go where the money is. But many people in this organization were not there for the price tag. They were not there for what they were paid. They were there because they believed in the ideals. It's a problematic it's a problematic sport. One of the reasons I'm no longer involved in pro cycling is because I believe that, those ideals that I thought are possible are probably, they have a very low threshold. You cannot live according to those ideals, and play that game in order to win. This is just not the way it works. And Bjarne, I think he's definitely changed a lot. He's a winner. He was as a cyclist. I think all the doping scandals and everything, I think they changed him and affected him a lot. But I truly believe that one of the main reasons that he was the kind of manager that he was, at least in my period over there, was that his reason of doing that was greater than just bike races. He really saw how we can use the sport to drive a change. When the team came to Israel in the winter of 2011, when I signed, and a good friend of mine, Lonnie San, who still up to date, is supporting me, my project, and has sponsored the team arrival to Israel to this special training camp with them. We built together a cycling school for Jewish and Arab kids in the city of Akko. And Bjarne insisted that every single member of the team, from Contador to Nick Nuyens to, or the last doctor, would be part of building that school with their hands. I think you can still find that video up in YouTube somewhere, because he believed in that. And not many people will give their star riders, who is paid millions, to lift, to lift stones with their hands and work hard, just because, it might look, as a forward-thinking, approach to someone. He's someone who really lives up to his values. He's not afraid. I think he's definitely had his fair share of criticism from all across the media, but he's a pioneer and an entrepreneur, obviously, and I wish him a lot of luck in his next venture.
In Bjarne in Denmark, you either love him or hate him. And but what you can see now is Denmark have the most world tour pros they've ever had. I definitely think Bjarne is basically the reason behind that, in the form of his team or him riding, just being an inspiration to young Danish guys.
Yes, and I think he cared a lot about developing the young Danish riders. I remember in every single training camp, we used to bring all these young coming riders. Like nowadays they are stars, but I remember Chris Juliansen and Mads Pedersen and all these guys, that now are stars. They were young cyclists who wanted to be part of the Star Trek sport, at some point. And definitely, I think Saxobank played an important part of their life, and Bjarne as the mastermind behind it.
So is that kind of because you were one of the founders and the manager for the Israel Cycling Academy? Was that kind of your vision for that team, to be like a gateway for Israeli pros to get into pro cycling?
Yes, Cycling Academy was my next chapter. I mean, it was my way to fulfill an unachieved dream. When I convinced Ron Baron to support it in the end of 2014, I didn't think that we will take it this far. But I knew we had to set ambitious goals. We didn't have the money for that. But I think my time with Bjarne was definitely played a big part in it. I wanted to create a team of people that that were there in the game for more than just the sport. I wanted to grow organically. I wanted to build this organization based on values, and it was important for me that we make it honest, and real. Therefore, the goal of growing with the riders, it was both a need because we didn't have an Israeli rider who was good enough at the time. It was a need for me because as a manager of the team, I didn't have any previous experience as a manager. I had to grow very fast and learn it all, on the go. But it was a journey, and it was something very exciting. Looking backwards, thinking how naive we were. In November 2014, we were standing in Jerusalem, launching the team and saying in 2020, we will have an Israeli team racing the Tour de France with an Israeli rider, and so many things, happened since then. And that it really is a miracle. I'm no longer involved in the team, but I'm I'm proud of my part in creating it and bringing it to the stage that Sylvan Adams took over, and now is fulfilling the dream. I have my own say on what's happening at the moment. I would have not signed Chris Froome, but I think they are doing a good job. That they are they are definitely, bring, having an Israeli team racing in the highest levels is not obvious, and it's not every day you see a country like that, that many people have definitely polarizing opinions on, who is able to showcase the world, the at least the people, the Israeli athletes, from a different perspective. Many people would say there's a hidden agenda, and whatever criticism they bring, but eventually sport brings people together. And if an Israeli rider at some stage will succeed, hopefully, they will definitely bring the people to speak about Israel. It will force them to speak about them from a different, angle of the debate, not just the political one, but also the sportive one. Discover more about himself.
So talking about the political aspect, you were kind of, well, you were one of the key drivers in the Giro d'Italia Big Start project. How did you get involved with that, and like how long was it in the making?
So it was also sort of it's like a miracle by itself, but it was an initiative that came up just because we've had to. In the end of 2015, and our first year in the continental ranks with the Israel Cycling Academy, back then it was named Cycling Academy, we were about to close the team. We didn't have any money. It was very hard to find sponsors. I had this long-term plan with milestones of how we were supposed to grow from continental, the pro continental, the world tour, and we didn't have enough support. And I realized, it's hard to raise money for a team that no one knows and no one cares of, because we don't have enough exposure. But we need to somehow create that exposure. We need to tell the story. And we were in a brainstorming meeting with some good friends of mine, that guy who used to be the mayor of the city of Jerusalem back then, Nir Barkat. And we were brainstorming of how we create that exposure, how we could create the platform for the team to be known, so we could bring more sponsors. And Nir, he encouraged me to think big and said, let's bring a big event over to Israel. What's the biggest you can think of? I said, well, the biggest we have in cycling is the Tour de France, but they are not going to come to Israel. But then after some thoughts, I heard that the Giro organizers were speaking with the Japanese of trying to bring the race to Tokyo, and enlarging the business, as we all know, that is much needed. So I thought, okay, they are speaking with the Japanese. I can definitely get to talk to Veni. Let's try to do something. So we wrote him a letter, and myself and the mayor of Jerusalem, and we invited the Mauro Veni to come to Israel to meet with us. And the mayor of Jerusalem gave his blessing. And then it was only a question of finding the money. So it was a crazy idea, but I thought, okay, if I'll be able to somehow instill, the Giro, the idea that the Giro is coming to Israel, having an Israeli team on the start line, I will have something to pitch the sponsors with, even with the idea, even though it's not yet happening. And that was the first time I was able to convince Sylvan Adams to support a project. He later on decided to sponsor the team, which was, an amazing thing by itself. And it brought Israel Cycling Academy to the pro continental levels in 2017, the year before the Giro, so it could prepare. And then obviously Sylvan paid for the Giro to come to Israel, and later on the team participated in the Giro, and the rest is history. But yeah, it all starts with an idea. The process, sometimes we are pushed to the wall, and we can decide if we want to give up or if we fight back. And I don't like giving up. So
everyone knows about the political situation going on in Israel, and there was so much controversy with the start there, and it was like no one cared about the event itself. It was more about the politics. And until I heard them interview some of the Israeli people, I didn't really have an opinion on it. And then they said how great it was that the biggest sporting event in Israel, ever to come to Israel, and they just loved the fact that they could just take their minds off suddenly they were a focal point for another reason than politics, which they just loved. And after that, I was like, you know what? It's great that they had the Giro d'Italia start there.
Yeah, I think politics is part of our life. Definitely here in Israel, but all over the world at the moment, we are living in a very, very interesting time where we are all coping with different kind of challenges. We are all forced to think out of the box. Many people who used to live in their own bubbles suddenly are forced to establish an opinion on things that they didn't care of before. We see what's going on in the US. these days. Who would have thought that in 2020 racial, gaps will be the thing that bothers us? Aren't we, supposed to be hundreds of years after that? But we are all people, and each one of us eventually is made of, different DNA. And I think what's amazing about sport, and therefore what Giro arrival here was so important, is that it really breaks some barriers. You and I speak, although I visited Copenhagen several times, and we chatted over WhatsApp before. I don't know you, but I feel that just because of the fact that we are both passionate about cycling, we have some sort of a connection, and I can definitely see us riding in the future and sharing adventures, and although we might have complete different opinions, which is great. I think in my own way, although it might sound a little bit idealistic or even naive, I don't think that changing the world is trying to fix everyone's problems, and it's not about changing everyone's opinions and having everyone being tolerated. This is not how it works. The world is not going to be fixed, by a certain person or quickly. It's a process, but it's about caring, and it's about being able to accept that not everything, everything is equal, that we're not all made the same. And by choosing sport as a platform, to bring people together, by not focusing on the bad stuff, but on focusing on the good and what we like. You and I, when we were watching the Giro, obviously I recognize some of the landscape probably better than you, but we saw a bike race, a colorful bike race, one exciting one, in a place that we didn't see before. So we heard some stories. We definitely learned some new stuff. And when Giro traveled to Italy, we continued watching a bike race, right? Posed with 200 or 198 different stories, or of the cyclists who are there. We were, each one of us is attracted to different things. You might be attracted more to the materialistic side of the bike. I like the human side a lot, the geographical landscape. Each one of us is interested in different things, but we are all connected through this passion. I think if I might have a suggestion, of how to approach this next phase of our life, where we are all forced to think out of the box. I think, focusing on things that we like, that attract us, that we are passionate about, is a good recipe. Try, bring people together.
What was those few days for you like in Jerusalem when the start was happening?
Crazy shit. Yeah, it was. Probably some of the most exciting, adrenaline full days of my life. It was also an end of an era. Before the Giro came to Israel, I decided I quit the team that I created, my baby, because I knew that this would be the way that it will be able to grow and survive, to hand it over to the people that are managing it today. So it was some sort of my goodbye. But it was beautiful. It was my way of really, living that story that I always told everyone. But, I don't know how many people believed this is greater than sport. And it was a big party, million people, million Israelis went down to the road to watch a bike race for the first time in their life. They didn't know what they're watching. But someone told them, that it's a good festival. You should go out there and watch and wave the flags, and you'll be on TV, and it's nice, So, and they came back home excited, They were entertained, which is awesome, regardless of where they came from. They were standing there outside the road and not focusing for a day on whatever problems they should, or have, they were just entertained, which is amazing. I think this is why I'm so attracted to this sport. This is why it fulfills such a big part of my life. It's because of its rare ability to bring people from, different backgrounds together. Its ability to bridge cultural and social gaps. Its ability to maintain our ongoing relationship with this vehicle, because we're so passionate about, and to turn it into a process. For me, the Giro was the end of my previous chapter in my life, but also the beginning of this new one. I was really eager to see if we are able to use it as a way to inspire young Israeli kids to get on their bike, and as it was the shooting start, the ability to really really launch this campaign of raising awareness to it. Now the second step is really to leveraging that to be able to actually get them on their bike and to turn cycling into be an important part of their life. So this is what I'm busy doing right now. In addition to the Bartali school, we have 10 other programs in other schools around the country. We're focusing mainly on youth at risk and youth who are coming from a from diverse backgrounds, bringing them together. We are planning to grow it significantly in the years to come. It's not an easy process. Cycling is a difficult sport. It's a logistic sport. It costs a lot of money. So we are busy finding, reinventing our model, focusing more on more sustainable, ways to do so, at least from the materialistic side. We are now coming up with a new project. We are building the Bartali gravel bikes that will be more, made of steel and more sustainable. And yeah, it's actually designed by a Danish frame builder named Margaliot. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff happening.
That's quite nice that you're kind of adopting the same philosophy like with the cycling academy, where you were kind of drawing riders from lesser known backgrounds. You had, I don't know how many national champions you had on the team. It was crazy. You had someone from Namibia, someone from Canada, I think, as well. That team, you did a lot of fundraising, as you said. How is it fundraising in this cycling space? You even have Peter Sagan as one of your funders for the team. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah, obviously, when you are running something, you have to find the means. With no money, no food. I was the beginning. I was pretty, bothered with that. It's not easy to fundraise. I don't like asking money. And I also think I don't want to like to be asked for money. But I also think we have this rare advantage where people are connected through cycling. So, the people leave aside the sponsorship side, which is obviously it's more business oriented, but the donation raising, the fundraising, the ability to bring someone meaningful to support your project is always part of seeing whether or not they are somehow emotionally connected to the vision. And I like a lot, the process of creating a large vision and really breaking it down into action items and tasks. I like the process of creation. I don't think I will ever be able to work in a normal day job, and therefore I understand that this is part of it. I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who are willing to support my projects. Obviously, this is something that is very concerned me. The future and the longevity. But it's part of it. If you want to create something meaningful, you need to be willing to find ways to fund it and to work harder. That's just how it is.
Israel's startup nation, as it was called, were pro-continental, and then Katusha folded and they overtook their license, I think. How is it for you seeing that team now? It's not like other teams like Bahrain or UAE where they don't have any riders from the nation that they have in their name. There's actually still 4 Israeli pros on that team. So how's that been for you?
Well, first, being honest, it's obviously being the one who created it and no longer be involved. I will always have my say, but it's great. It's great to see the project is succeeding. Most of the people that are running the project are people that were the people I brought up into it, and therefore I want to see them succeeding. It's great that the Israeli riders are doing so well. This is what really matters for me. I want them to succeed badly. I want them to see them being able to fulfill. Each one of them has his own potential, and later on be able to pass on this legacy, of how cycling changed their life, whether or not they will grow a next generation of Israeli racers or just, be an inspiration for other Israeli kids to pick up cycling. This is what I think this project really need to focus on. And I really hope that with this, huge milestone of the Tour de France, hopefully happening in September, and an Israeli rider being in the start line and hopefully also in the finish line in Champs-Élysées, I think that this will have another stepping stone for the recognition of cycling in Israel. My criticism is mainly on the fact that as a World Tour team, obviously, you are driven by different interests, but also by the fact that you need to bring money into the table, and therefore it's very it's very easy to to be focused on what can grow the project rather than just being loyal and honest to the original goal of growing the sport over here and growing the awareness for Israel. I think that having a rider as Chris Froome riding for the team will definitely grow the recognition of the team and definitely the recognition probably of the brand of Israel Startup Nation. But it will not be the best thing for the Israeli riders. I don't think that supporting, a rider in the scale of Chris Froome trying to win the race will be the best way for them to grow. It might be something that will also harm them. Yet to be seen. I might be wrong about that, But I think, from my understanding, this Israeli Startup Nation, this point of time, is one of the few teams who have the fortune to be supported by someone who is doing well financially, who is sustainable and is committed to the project. Therefore, Sylvain has his own, rights to decide whatever he wants. If I were the one running the team, I would have wanted to see it grow slowly. I think it's important to have the process to create step by step. I think the most important thing for me, my perspective, is to see that the feeder team, the Israel Cycling Academy, the Continental team, will do well. I think that this is a platform that would really drive a change, would turn this project to be more authentic, more inspiring. They could grow more Israeli talents to step up with the World Tour team, so the numbers will grow. That will make a big difference, as you said. If the Israeli team will be composed from a large amount of Israeli riders, to be more authentic.
Well, that's kind of the same problem that Saxobank had in Denmark. You had the big stars like Andy Schlecht or Contador, and then all the Danish riders were more or less just domestiques, and we didn't really grow a superstar out of that. So do you think Chris Froome would it would be seen as like increasing the brand of the team, but not, as you said, develop the next superstar from Israel?
I would say, for me, Saxobank was more Danish than Israel. Startup Nation is Israeli, just by the people. I think it's a known fact, and I always stick to it. That the staff is making the team and not the riders. Staff remains, riders come and go. In Saxobank, we had a lot of Danish staff. In Israel Cycling Academy, the Israel Startup Nation, there is no Israeli staff. And the fact that Sylvain Adams is supporting it, and that the team is loyal to its roots, and it's definitely trying to promote the Israeli riders, and it's carrying the Israeli flag, and it comes to Israel every winter for a training camp. The character of the team is an international one, which is great. But I believe that you were talking about politics before, and I was mentioning my own view on how sport can change society. If the team will able to go that next step and bring more Israelis into it, and therefore those Israelis, when they will come back after their career with the team, hopefully it will be long, and grow the sport over here and share the values and instill the passion for cycling in more people, this will achieve the mission. What bothers me the most about the model of pro cycling is that it's not only unsustainable from money perspective, it's also unsustainable in the way that you are not leaving any legacy. If Israel Startup Nation will cease operations tomorrow or in 3 years, what will it leave after it? What will remain? What will come after? This is, I might not be the best person to talk about it, because I obviously have my opinion and I'm focused a lot about youth in the next generation. But this is what matters to me. How do we build stuff that remains after us? That's also part of what I think is important in the world at this point of time, caring about what will remain here after us.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, from my opinion or my view, that Chris Froome is just kind of, it sounds bad to say it like that, but using Israel Cycling Academy because he doesn't want the leadership battle with Egan Bernal and Geraint Thomas. And I feel like, yeah, that's well, it's not fair that Israel Cycling Nation, Startup Nation, should, well, not use, because he will get results, but you know what I mean.
I mean, everyone has his own interest, which is great. It's business at this level, with this amount of money. It is business. There is no other way to see it, and they're all doing a good job. I'm more concerned about the reason. I think that specifically Israel startup nation, or at least what it used to be, Israel Cycling Academy at my time, had a different why, have a different purpose, which is probably has been changed, which is okay. This team was created as a cycling academy. There is a reason for the word cycling academy. This is no longer a cycling academy. This is for the graduated. The only question is, okay, are you only aiming for to win bike races at any cost, or do we also, are you still committed to that goal of development? And it's okay if it's not anymore. This is, I would have probably gone a different path, but I'm not them. I'm not paying those bills anymore. So,
do you think it's feasible to have a top pro level race in Israel? Because I feel like that would really, we saw how much publicity like the Giro d'Italia start got, and for the growth of cycling in Israel.
Yeah, so I think that's an important one. Sylvan was talking about creating a tour of Israel. I think that would be great if it happens. I think definitely it will grow the sport a lot. What I see here, and what I see also in the future of the sport, I believe cycling would change a lot in the coming years. It has to, just has to. I don't see the calendar remains as it is, with so many races. I think the participation side, the part where the fans are able to participate, you see it in the US with the gravel races, how great it is that, you have on the same start line, you have the pros and the aficionados. Obviously it cannot happen in the Tour de France. It cannot happen in the biggest races, but here in Israel, this is what's needed. If you have that, that large project, huge event where you're going to have a pro race, in a side, another event, another component of an event that enables mass participation, this will be huge. This is what the people want to be part of. They don't just want to be watched, not in cycling. You watch a bike race, okay, it's nice for some time. If you are a hardcore cyclist, you may remain in front of the TV for more. But we all want to be a part of it. We all want to ride. And this is what makes it so special. And as even the main stakeholders need to find new ways to fund the sport at the moment. I believe this is the direction it will go. It just has to go. This is the way the industry, finance itself. You need to be able to bring together the professional side, participation side, and create a hybrid event.
All right. Thanks for your time, Ran. I know you're a very busy man. It's been an extremely interesting interview. And I'll make sure to drop all your details down below in the description, and to your school as well, because it's a very interesting project as well.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good one.
See you next time. That's it for this interview with Ran Margaliot. Make sure to check out the link down below to the Gino Bartali Youth Leadership School and Ran's Instagram. And as always, make sure to subscribe to not miss out on any of our new videos. And if you haven't already, why not check out the interview with Axel Merckx or with Alexander Christoph. And as always, thank you for watching, and see you next time.